The story began with Samuel Gray, a man with a sorrowful past. Before becoming the lighthouse keeper, Samuel had been a sailor, a man who had sailed the seas with his beloved wife, Margaret. Their lives had been entwined, their love as constant as the waves. But fate, cruel and indifferent, shattered their happiness. One stormy night while at sea, their ship was caught in a fierce tempest. The boat capsized, and though Samuel survived, Margaret was lost to the sea, her body never found. Devastated and haunted by her loss, Samuel took up the post of lighthouse keeper in the hopes of finding solace. But he wasn't just lighting the beacon for sailors. Samuel believed that the light had the power to guide souls to safety, to bring back the lost, to somehow call Margaret's spirit to him. He spent long, solitary nights tending to the flame, watching the light sweep across the dark ocean, his heart aching for a glimpse of the woman he had loved. Years passed, and Samuel's obsession with the lighthouse grew. He no longer spoke to the townsfolk, his only company being the constant crashing of waves and the flickering light. He would stay at the top of the lighthouse for hours, murmuring to the sea, hoping that it would give him something, anything, that would bring Margaret back. But it never did. One evening, in the midst of a violent storm, a shipwreck occurred just below the lighthouse. The sound of splintering wood and the cries of sailors filled the air. Samuel rushed to the shore, his heart pounding. Amid the wreckage, he found a man, barely alive, clinging to a piece of driftwood. The man was brought back to the lighthouse, his body battered and bloodied. As Samuel nursed the stranger back to health, the man murmured words that would forever change Samuel's understanding of the lighthouse. "The sea, it's cursed. We cannot escape it. Our souls are trapped," he gasped. Confused, Samuel pressed for more information, but the stranger could offer little. All he said was, "The light, it doesn't guide, it traps." The stranger died the following night, his body cold and lifeless. But those final words gnawed at Samuel's mind. The light was never meant to guide. It was a trap, a way to imprison the spirits of the dead. Samuel's mind began to unravel. He had believed the light would bring Margaret back, but now he wondered, was she truly lost to the sea, or had the light taken her, as it had taken so many others? Desperation took hold of Samuel. His obsession with the lighthouse intensified, and the villagers began to notice strange occurrences. Sailors who passed by the lighthouse on stormy nights reported hearing faint voices in the fog, voices that sounded eerily familiar, as if someone were calling out to them from the mist. At first, the townspeople thought it was just the wind, but the whispers continued. More disturbing was the growing number of disappearances in Brinecroft. Fishermen, travelers, and even children, one by one, they vanished, leaving no trace behind. The town grew uneasy, and many began to avoid the lighthouse altogether. Some whispered that the spirits trapped within the lighthouse were calling the living to join them. On the fateful night of the Great Storm of 1887, disaster struck. A ship named the Black Dove became lost in the tempest and was driven into the rocks just beneath the lighthouse. The wreckage was scattered along the shore, but when rescuers arrived, they found no bodies, only an eerie light that flickered at the top of the lighthouse, casting long shadows across the sea. As the days passed, Samuel continued his solitary vigil. But then one night, he simply disappeared. No one saw him leave. The lighthouse continued to shine its light into the night, and the voices in the fog grew louder. The villagers feared that Samuel, too, had become a part of the lighthouse, another soul trapped by its cursed light. Years later, Brinecroft still remembered Samuel Gray, though his name had become little more than a ghost story. Yet the lighthouse remained, its light shining eternally, always guiding the lost and the damned. Those who dared venture close to the lighthouse on stormy nights claimed to see a figure standing at the window, a shadowy figure, pale and lifeless, watching over the sea. They said it was Samuel, still trapped in the lighthouse, his eyes hollow and empty, his body a mere echo of the man he once was. The light that once guided ships now lured the lost, pulling them into the rocky embrace of the sea. The spirits of those who had drowned, their souls never given peace, wandered the foggy shore, waiting for an escape that would never come. And the lighthouse, eternal and unyielding, continued to shine its light over them, guarding the dead forever.